The year was 2137 and humanity had reached the stars. Colonies floated on the edge of Jupiter, and cities sparkled on the dusty plains of Mars. But with every great step forward came a shadow of fear. On a silent night above Europa, a strange object was found drifting in space. It was not a rock nor a ship. It was something older, something far more dangerous. The object looked like a crystal goblet, glowing softly, filled with a liquid that shimmered like trapped starlight. Nobody knew who had left it there or why, but carved into the side of the goblet were words not written by human hands. Words that were translated later into one chilling warning. One sip, and humanity is lost forever. The scientists argued for weeks. Some said it was a trap, a weapon left behind by an alien race. Others claimed it was a test, a gift waiting for those who dared. The liquid inside seemed alive, shifting in color like it was breathing. No machine could analyze it. No scanner could read its structure. It was something beyond human knowledge. Governments demanded it be destroyed, but the military refused. If this was power, they could not throw it away. If it was danger, they had to understand it before the enemy did. And so, the goblet was brought to Earth, hidden in the deepest vaults under the World Science Council. The news leaked. People across the planet whispered about it. Some feared it would end the world. Others hoped it would make them gods. But one thing was clear. Humanity stood at a line it had never crossed before. A single sip could mean extinction or evolution. It could mean the end of mankind or the birth of something greater. Among those chosen to study the goblet was a man named Daniel Carter. He was not the most brilliant scientist, nor the strongest soldier. But he was known for one thing: he never turned away from risk. A former astronaut, Daniel had walked on planets where no one else had dared to go. He had faced storms that could crush steel, and darkness that could break a man's mind. He had survived, and now he stood before the goblet staring into its endless light. His colleagues warned him. The room was filled with voices of panic and reason. "Daniel, stop. We don't know what it will do." "This is madness. It could kill you in seconds." But Daniel only whispered, almost to himself, "Or it could save us." For days, the council debated who, if anyone, should be allowed to test the liquid. Robots failed. Drones melted into silence after contact. Animals that drank it changed in ways too horrifying to describe. Some burst into ash, others twisted into forms that no longer looked alive. Yet still Daniel volunteered. He believed that if humanity was to grow, someone had to take the first step. To him, fear was a chain, and he refused to live in chains. The night of the trial was heavy with silence. The goblet was placed on a table of black steel. Guards stood around the chamber, their fingers tight on triggers in case Daniel turned into something else. Cameras rolled, broadcasting live across every corner of the earth. Billions of eyes watched in dread and wonder. The world held its breath. Daniel walked forward slowly, his footsteps echoing like thunder in the chamber. The liquid glowed brighter as if it was calling to him, as if it wanted him. He reached out, his hand trembling for the first time in years. He touched the goblet. It was warm, almost alive. His reflection stared back at him from its crystal surface, but his reflection's eyes glowed faintly, before his even had. He lifted it. The weight was more than it should have been, as if it carried the weight of history itself. Daniel looked once at the cameras, at the billions of faces waiting for him to decide. And in that moment he smiled, not with joy, but with defiance. They had warned him. They had begged him. They had said, "One sip and humanity is lost forever." The goblet touched his lips. The liquid slid into his mouth, burning and sweet at the same time, like drinking lightning made of honey. He swallowed. Instantly, his vision exploded into light. He saw stars collapsing, galaxies spinning. Wars fought on worlds he had never known. He heard voices not his own, whispering inside his head in 1,000 alien tongues. His veins glowed beneath his skin. His eyes turned bright as suns. Around him, the machines in the chamber powered on without wires, without fuel, drawn to his presence like moths to fire. And Daniel Carter fell to his knees, gasping for breath as the world watched. Something inside him was changing, something not human, something far beyond. And in that silence, as his hands burned with new energy, Daniel whispered the last human words he would ever truly speak. "This is only the beginning." Daniel Carter lay on the cold steel floor, his chest rising and falling as if each breath carried the weight of the universe. His body shook, his fingers clawed at the ground, and his eyes glowed with a fierce, unearthly light. Around him, alarms screamed, red lights flashed, and the soldiers who had been ordered to watch over him now stood frozen. They had been trained to fight wars, to face monsters of flesh and blood, but what they saw in Daniel was something none of them understood. He was changing before their very eyes. The glowing veins that spread across his skin pulsed like rivers of molten fire. The liquid he had swallowed was not settling, it was alive, moving inside him, rewriting him. His screams echoed across the chamber, but mixed with them came laughter, deep and powerful, as if two voices were speaking at once. One was Daniel's, the other belonged to something else. "Hold your fire," the commander shouted, but his men gripped their weapons tighter. Machines in the room suddenly sparked to life, though no power ran through them. Screens flashed with symbols no human language had ever written. The goblet on the table shattered into dust as if its purpose was complete. And Daniel rose slowly to his feet, no longer trembling but steady. Too steady. His back straight, his eyes burning like twin stars, he looked less like a man and more like a god who had just awakened. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Daniel raised a hand, and without touching anything, the alarms cut off. The sirens died, and the lights returned to calm. It was as if the room itself obeyed him. His fellow scientists whispered in horror. Some fell to their knees. Others stepped back, pressing against the walls, desperate to escape. But nobody dared move too quickly. Daniel's voice was different now, deeper, resonant. Every word he spoke vibrated in the air like thunder. "I can see it. I can see everything." His eyes flickered, glowing brighter. The stars. The future. The truth of what we are. A young scientist cried out, "You're not human anymore." Daniel turned his gaze toward her. For a second, his expression softened, almost human again. Then he said quietly, "Maybe not, but maybe this is what we were meant to become." He raised his hand again, and the heavy steel door at the end of the chamber unlocked itself with a groan. Nobody had touched the controls. Nobody had given a code. The door obeyed Daniel's thought alone. Soldiers aimed their rifles at him now, hands shaking. They had seen enough. But before a single trigger could be pulled, every rifle flew from their hands, ripping into the air as if an invisible storm had taken them. The weapons clattered to the ground, useless. Daniel looked down at his hands, shocked at his own power. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. But inside his chest he felt a pull, like a second heartbeat, stronger than his own. The voice returned, alien, calm, powerful. "You are chosen. You are the vessel. Humanity's evolution begins now." He staggered, gripping his head. The soldiers, now weaponless, scrambled backward. Some shouted into radios. Others prayed under their breath. Across the world, billions of people still watched, every screen alive with the sight of one man becoming something greater, or something terrifying. Daniel fell to his knees again, but this time, not from pain. Instead, he reached down and touched the steel floor. A ripple of light spread outward from his palm, racing across the chamber like water. Where it passed, broken screens healed themselves, shattered glass reformed, circuits sparked alive again. Machines bowed to him, their humming soft like worship. "Impossible," one of the scientists whispered. "He's controlling matter itself." But Daniel wasn't smiling. His face was pale, his breath heavy. "No," he said softly. "I'm not controlling it. It's controlling me." He saw flashes in his mind, memories that weren't his. Alien skies, armies of creatures kneeling before beings that shone with the same light now flowing in his veins, and always, always the same phrase repeating in the voices of the dead. One sip, and humanity is lost forever. Daniel clenched his fists, fighting the pull of the alien voice. But with every heartbeat, he felt himself slipping further away from who he once was. His memories of Earth blurred. His mother's face faded. His childhood laughter dimmed like a dying star. Instead, knowledge that no human had ever known filled him. How to bend gravity, how to speak across galaxies, how to break the laws of nature with a single thought. The scientists debated in panic. Some cried for his execution. Others begged for him to be studied, to learn from him. The soldiers looked to their commander, waiting for orders, but the commander only shook his head. "How do you kill a god?" he whispered. Daniel raised his head slowly, his glowing eyes fixed on the cameras. Billions were watching. Every man, woman, and child on earth saw what he had become. He opened his mouth, and for the first time since the transformation began, he smiled. Not a human smile. Not the smile of Daniel Carter. It was something colder, sharper, filled with destiny. And with that voice that carried across every screen, across every continent, he spoke, "This is not the end of humanity. This is its beginning." The world did not sleep that night. Billions had watched Daniel Carter transform before their very eyes, and now every street, every home, every city echoed with the same question. Was he humanity's savior? Or its destroyer? At first, the signs looked like a miracle. Daniel's new abilities spread hope across the planet. He could heal with a touch. On the second day after the SIP, he visited a hospital where hundreds of patients lay dying. Doctors stepped aside as Daniel walked among the sick. He placed his hand on a boy's chest, and the boy's failing heart beat strong again. He touched an old woman's forehead, and the cancer inside her body vanished. People cried out, falling to their knees. "A miracle!" they shouted. "He is chosen." Word spread fast. Within hours, desperate crowds filled the streets, begging for Daniel to come. Mothers held up sick children. Families carried their dying elders. Daniel walked among them, healing one after another. His face showed no pride, no joy, only silence. To the people, he was a savior. But inside, he felt the truth. Every time he healed someone, he lost a little more of himself. His hands glowed brighter, his heart beat stranger. The alien voice inside whispered louder. "They are not yours to heal. They are ours to change." But humanity did not see the danger. They saw a man who could do what no medicine, no science, no god of old had ever done. Leaders of nations invited him. Some called him the future of mankind. Others feared him but dared not oppose him. Wars paused. Armies lowered weapons. For the first time in centuries, the world united, not through politics or treaties, but through awe and fear of a single man. Yet the cracks soon began to show. Daniel tried to live as he once did, but everything around him responded to his presence. Lights flickered when he entered a room. Machines turned on without touch. Computers displayed symbols from alien languages he had never learned. People began to whisper not just of miracles, but of curses. One night, as Daniel sat in silence, a friend from his past, Dr. Evelyn Ross, came to him. She had been with him on missions before, back when he was only human. She looked at him now, her voice heavy with sorrow. "You're not the same, Daniel. I can see it in your eyes. You heal them, yes. But you don't feel it anymore, do you?" Daniel tried to answer, but the words caught in his throat. He remembered when saving a life filled him with warmth, with joy. But now, when he healed, all he felt was the hum of alien power in his veins, cold and endless. He looked away from her, ashamed. "You are changing," Evelyn whispered, "and I don't know if we can follow you." Daniel closed his eyes. He wanted to argue, to claim he was still himself. But deep inside, he knew she was right. His emotions were fading. Human memories slipped like sand through his fingers. In their place grew knowledge and instincts not of this world. He could calculate the rotation of distant planets without thinking. He could hear signals from stars millions of light years away, and every night, he dreamed of alien empires rising and falling, as though he had lived their lives himself. The people did not see this struggle. They only saw his power. They worshipped him. Crowds built statues of his image. Children sang his name. But in the dark corners of the world, some whispered that Daniel was no savior. He was the first of something else, something inhuman, wearing a human face. And then came the first disaster. A small city's power grid failed. Thousands were trapped in darkness. Daniel arrived, determined to help. He reached out, and with a thought, he restored the power. The city lit up brighter than ever before. People cheered until they noticed something strange. The machines didn't just return. They changed. Devices now pulsed with the same glow that ran through Daniel's veins. Engines no longer ran on fuel, but on a silent energy no human could explain. At first, people marveled. But soon fear grew. "He's rewriting our world," some said. "Even our machines obey him now." Governments began to argue. Some demanded Daniel be placed under control, fearing he was turning Earth into something alien. Others said he was the key to survival, that only through him could humanity face whatever dangers lurked among the stars. War meetings resumed, this time with one question at the center. Was Daniel Carter the greatest gift ever given? Or the curse that would erase mankind? Daniel himself stood alone, staring at his reflection. His glowing eyes no longer looked human. His own heartbeat sounded like a drum of thunder, echoing from another world. And for the first time since he drank from the goblet, he whispered the fear he had buried deep inside. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity is already lost. Daniel Carter could no longer sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, visions came. Visions not of dreams, but of memories that did not belong to him. He saw alien cities rising into the sky, their towers glowing with the same light that now ran in his veins. He saw armies kneeling before beings of fire and shadow, their eyes burning like his own. He saw galaxies consumed, their stars extinguished, and heard the same whisper in every vision. One sip, and humanity is lost forever. Daniel woke in the middle of the night, his body trembling. He went to the mirror, hoping to see his face, the man he once was. But the reflection staring back was not human anymore. His pupils were gone, replaced by rings of glowing silver. His skin seemed to shimmer faintly, like it was no longer flesh, but something else. For a moment, the reflection smiled, even though his own lips did not move. He stumbled backward, heart pounding with a rhythm that was no longer his own. He tried to hide it, to tell himself he was still Daniel. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The goblet had not given him power. It was rewriting him. He was becoming something new, something not of Earth. And worse, he was no longer sure if he had the strength to stop it. The governments of Earth had begun their debates again. Some wanted to use Daniel as a weapon. Others wanted him destroyed before he lost control. But none of them knew what he already feared. The change was not only in him. The city he had touched days earlier, the machines that had pulsed with his strange energy, he now realized they too were changing. He had infected them. His evolution was not his alone. It was spreading like fire leaping from tree to tree. Dr. Evelyn Ross confronted him one night. She had been studying the symbols that appeared on machines when Daniel was near. She placed the results on the table in front of him, pages filled with glowing alien marks. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice shaking, "these are not random codes. They are instructions, commands. Whoever created that liquid, they built it to take over. You're not gaining power. You're being rewritten." Daniel stared at the pages, the alien words that he now understood without ever learning. He translated them aloud before he realized it. "The vessel shall carry the seed. Through him the species will ascend. Through him the old flesh will be erased." His voice broke. "Evelyn, it's me." "I'm the vessel." Her eyes filled with fear. "Then it's true. Humanity isn't being saved, Daniel. Humanity is being replaced." The weight of those words crushed him. He wanted to believe he still had a choice, that he could fight the change. But the alien presence inside him laughed, a cold echo in his mind. "You are ours now. Do not resist. You are the bridge. Through you they will all become." Daniel slammed his fists into the table, shattering steel like glass. "No," he roared, his voice shaking the room. "I am not your puppet." But even as he shouted, his hands glowed with blinding light, and the walls bent around him as if space itself was trembling. Evelyn staggered back, tears streaming down her face. "You can't fight it," she whispered. "You're losing yourself." Daniel's memories flickered like broken film. His mother's voice, once warm and clear, now faded into static. The laughter of his friends felt like echoes from another universe, and in their place came alien commands, endless knowledge of technologies and weapons his mind should not have known. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head. "I can't hold it," he gasped. "I don't know how much longer I'm me." The news spread quickly, strange changes appearing across the world. Power grids humming with new energy, machines rewriting their own codes. Even people near Daniel reported strange symptoms, healed wounds that left glowing scars or dreams of alien stars they had never seen. Humanity was already changing piece by piece. Leaders demanded answers. Scientists argued in fear. Was Daniel a savior bringing evolution, or was he the end of mankind as they knew it? And Daniel himself, torn between two worlds, finally admitted the truth out loud. Maybe they were right all along. Humanity is already lost. I'm just the beginning of what comes next. The chamber fell silent as his words echoed. For the first time, he looked not like a hero, not like a monster, but like a man standing on the edge of something far greater than either. And deep in his mind, the alien voice whispered with finality, "The old world is ending. The new one begins with you." The world was no longer united. At first, Daniel Carter's powers had brought awe, even worship. But now fear spread faster than hope. Governments divided into two sides. One side believed Daniel was humanity's destiny, the bridge to a stronger future. The other believed he was a threat, a weapon that must be destroyed before he erased mankind entirely. And while the leaders argued, Daniel himself struggled between the two truths, tearing him apart. Every night, the alien voice inside his head grew louder. It whispered promises of power, control over gravity, mastery of life and death, knowledge of every world beyond the stars. It told him he was chosen, that resistance was pointless. But then came Evelyn Ross, his oldest friend, the only one brave enough to stand against him. She reminded him of his humanity, of who he once was. "You don't have to listen," she told him. "You don't have to give in." But her words felt weak against the chorus of alien commands echoing in his mind. The first attack came in the dead of night. A strike team sent by the United World Council stormed the compound where Daniel stayed. They came with experimental weapons built from alien tech scavenged years before. Their orders were clear. Daniel Carter must not leave the building alive. He woke to the sound of boots pounding the halls. Soldiers burst into his chamber, rifles glowing with plasma rounds. For a moment, Daniel froze. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to kill. But the voice inside him roared, "Survive, destroy, ascend." His eyes blazed, and before the soldiers could fire, their weapons ripped from their hands and floated into the air. The room shook as Daniel's power surged out of him like a storm. In seconds, the men who had come to end him were lying unconscious on the floor, their minds overwhelmed by forces they couldn't understand. Daniel stood trembling, his breath ragged. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. But deep down he knew the truth. Each time he used his powers, the alien side of him grew stronger. The human side grew weaker. The news of the attack only fueled the fire. Across the world, riots broke out. In some cities, crowds carried banners with Daniel's name, calling him the savior. In others, mobs screamed for his death, calling him the end of humanity. Armies faced one another, not over land or resources, but over the question of one man. Daniel saw it all. He didn't need screens or reports. His mind stretched across the globe, feeling the fear and hope of billions. It tore at him, a storm of voices pulling him in every direction. One half of the world begged him to lead them. The other half prayed for his destruction. And then came the visions. Clearer than ever before, Daniel saw himself standing at the head of armies, not of humans, but of something new. Beings like him, their eyes burning, their bodies glowing with alien power. He saw cities reshaped in alien design, machines alive and bending to his will. He saw Earth transformed into something unrecognizable. And in the darkest vision, he saw himself looking down on the ruins of humanity, his heart no longer beating, because he was no longer human at all. Evelyn confronted him after one of these visions. She found him kneeling in the ashes of the soldiers' broken weapons. "You're losing yourself," she said softly. "Every time you use that power, you let them in more. How long until Daniel Carter is gone?" His glowing eyes turned to her, filled with sorrow. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if I stop, I doom humanity to weakness. And if I continue—" He trailed off, unable to finish. She reached for his hand, her voice breaking. "What if saving us means losing you? What if saving you means saving what it means to be human?" Before Daniel could answer, the alien voice thundered inside him. "Enough doubt, choose, the weak or the strong. The dying or the eternal." Daniel screamed, clutching his head torn between two worlds. And at that moment, the world itself seemed to hold its breath. Governments moved their armies. People prayed. The question that had haunted mankind since the goblet was found now burned brighter than ever. Was Daniel Carter the hero who would save them, or the curse that would bring their end? Standing in the silence after his scream, Daniel whispered to himself, barely louder than breath, "Maybe I can't save both. Maybe I'll have to choose." The world stood on the edge of war. Armies moved in secret. Leaders whispered of strikes and counterstrikes. Half the nations of Earth declared Daniel Carter their future. The other half prepared to erase him before he erased them. And while billions argued, feared, and prayed, Daniel sat alone, listening to the voice inside his head grow louder each passing hour. "You are the bridge," it whispered. "You are the vessel. Through you, the weak will be made strong. Through you, eternity begins." But another voice, faint and fragile, still lived inside him. His own voice. The voice that remembered Earth, his friends, his humanity, and that voice begged him to stop. Daniel stood on the balcony of the council tower, the city stretching out beneath him. Neon lights flickered, streets thrummed with life, but he saw something no one else could. Every building, every machine, every living soul glowed faintly, touched by the same energy now flowing inside him. The transformation was no longer his alone, it was spreading. Slowly, silently, humanity was already changing. Evelyn Ross appeared behind him. Her voice was sharp but heavy with sorrow. "They're going to move against you, Daniel. The council has voted. At sunrise, they'll attack with everything they have." Daniel didn't turn. His glowing eyes watched the horizon. "And if they fail?" he asked. She hesitated. "Then humanity fails with them. Because if you survive, if you finish what's happening to you, there won't be any of us left. Only something else." Daniel closed his eyes. Her words were true. He felt it every second, the alien will inside him, pushing, guiding, tempting. "Drink again," it whispered. "Finish the transformation. Take the second step. Become complete." He turned to Evelyn, his face torn between sorrow and resolve. "Maybe this is what we were meant for. Maybe humanity has to end, so something stronger can rise." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, Daniel. Humanity is not weak. It's flawed, yes, but that's what makes us human. Choice, fear, love. You'll lose all of that. Don't you see? They don't want to give us a gift. They want to replace us." Her words cut deep. Daniel wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe he still had control. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The choice was slipping from his hands. That night, the world held its breath as two forces prepared for dawn. Armies gathered on one side, waiting for orders to destroy him. On the other, masses of people held torches and banners, praying for him to lead them into a new age. And at the center of it all, Daniel Carter stood with the shattered remains of the goblet in his hands. To everyone else, it was just broken crystal, but to him it still pulsed with energy, whispering promises no human could resist. He felt Evelyn's eyes on him, begging him silently to stay human. He felt the alien presence urging him to drink again, to complete what had begun, and between those two forces, Daniel realized he could no longer stand still. The ground shook as the first missiles launched. Sirens wailed across the city. Armies moved. The war for humanity had begun. Daniel raised the goblet, the shards glowing like burning ice. His hands trembled, his face pale. He saw two futures in his mind. In one, he resisted. He let the armies destroy him, and humanity lived on, flawed, fragile, but still human. In the other, he drank. He became something beyond life, beyond death, and humanity as it was known would vanish forever, replaced by something new. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The missiles cut through the sky, fire blazing behind them. Soldiers shouted. Crowds screamed. Evelyn cried out, "Daniel, please!" And Daniel made his choice. He lifted the goblet to his lips. The shards melted into liquid as if the universe itself bent to obey him. The light poured into his mouth, burning brighter than the sun. His body arched, his skin dissolving into pure energy. The alien voice roared with triumph. "Complete! The vessel is complete." The missiles struck, but instead of fire, the explosion bent backward, collapsing in silence, erased by the wave of power that surged from Daniel's body. Armies froze in place, unable to move as the air shimmered with his transformation. On every screen, across every city, people watched as Daniel Carter became something no longer human. His voice echoed across the world, deep and resonant, carrying into every mind. "This is the choice. I am not man. I am not alien. I am the beginning of what comes next." The world did not end in fire. It ended in silence. When Daniel Carter drank the last of the goblet, the energy inside him exploded outward in a wave no weapon could stop. Missiles froze mid-air, their warheads dissolving into harmless dust. Soldiers dropped their rifles as the metal bent and melted in their hands. The sky itself glowed, every cloud burning with strange light as if Earth had been wrapped inside a living star. People screamed, prayed, and fell to their knees. They thought it was the end, but what came was stranger. The wave touched every living soul, across cities and villages, across deserts and oceans. Men and women felt their bodies shiver as something awakened inside them. Old wounds sealed. Blind eyes saw again. But along with healing came change. Their veins glowed faintly in the dark. Their skin pulsed with the same shimmer that once belonged only to Daniel. Humanity itself had been rewritten. In the silence that followed, Daniel floated above the ground, no longer flesh and bone, but a being of pure light. His human face flickered in and out, but it was fading. His eyes burned like twin suns, and his voice was no longer his own. When he spoke, the entire world heard it. Not through screens, not through radios, but inside their very minds. It is done. Humanity is no more. Humanity is reborn. Billions trembled. Some wept in joy, believing they had been given a gift. Others screamed in terror, feeling their humanity slipping away. Children touched their glowing skin in wonder. Soldiers dropped their weapons and fell to the ground, broken by the truth. They had lost a war before it had even begun. Dr. Evelyn Ross stood among the stunned crowds, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had begged him not to drink. She had begged him to stay human. And now, as she stared at the glowing figure that had once been her friend, she realized he was gone. Daniel Carter was no longer a man. He was something else entirely. But then, something unexpected happened. The light that had consumed him flickered, and for one fragile second his human face returned. His eyes, still glowing, found Evelyn in the crowd. His lips moved, and in a whisper softer than wind, she heard the last words of the man she once knew. "I'm sorry." The alien voice roared inside him, demanding silence, demanding obedience. But Daniel's human side fought one last time. With a scream that split the air, he pushed against the presence inside him. He spread his arms wide, and the light around him trembled. The ground cracked, buildings shook, and the sky thundered with storms. For a moment it looked as if Earth itself would tear apart. Billions watched in horror and awe as Daniel fought himself. His body was the battlefield, the human soul against the alien will. And then came the final flash, brighter than any star. When the light cleared, Daniel was gone. The armies were gone. The weapons were gone. But the change remained. Every human on Earth now carried a spark of what Daniel had become. Some faint, some strong. No one was untouched. Evelyn fell to her knees, tears streaking her face. She whispered into the silence, "Daniel, what have you done?" But no answer came. In the days that followed, humanity discovered the truth. They no longer grew sick. Their bodies healed faster. Their minds stretched further. Machines obeyed their thoughts with a whisper. Humanity had not died in fire, it had evolved. But at a cost. The line between human and alien was gone forever. Historians would later argue if it was salvation or destruction. Some said Daniel Carter was the savior of mankind, the one who lifted them into a new age. Others said he was the curse who erased what it meant to be human. Statues rose in his name and were torn down in equal measure. His story became both legend and warning. But one truth could not be denied: he had fulfilled the prophecy. The words carved on the goblet had come true. One sip and humanity is lost forever. Humanity was lost. But something new had taken its place. And in the quiet nights when the stars shone brighter than ever before, some swore they could still hear Daniel's voice carried on the wind. Not the alien voice, not the godlike echo, but the faint broken whisper of a man who had sacrificed everything. This is only the beginning.